Rick Without the K James presents, in my opinion, podcast.
So one of the things I wanted to go back and discuss that we talked about earlier is I was raised, my mother, all three of her brothers served in the military. And the respect I've always had for the military soldiers, that they go, and some of them don't come home. So to me, a man in a uniform, woman in a uniform, just automatically gets respect. So for you to tell me that you didn't get it because you were a black man in a uniform, that just shocks me. I mean, that literally shocks me.
Did it shock you that it went on after World War I and II?
I probably wasn't old enough to have
you read history, though.
Yes.
So and then we had to have the Civil Rights era, which was in the 60s, right?
Okay. But you served in the, 80s?
Yeah, but it still goes on. So just because, it's like when two brothers are fighting and the parents say, break it up. Go to your rooms or make up. They may hug and go to their rooms, but they're still sore. Everybody here has kids. I'm sorry, I don't know if you do it.
I have a daughter.
Okay. The kids are still sore. That doesn't go away. You know what I'm saying? So just because even after the Civil Rights era, even in the 60s, did everything automatically get better? No. Did when the little girl got walked into the school in Little Rock, did everything get better after that? No. So, like I was saying earlier, racism is not in our faces, where they can't say certain words or whatever, but they can do it in a backhanded way. So me in the 80s, this is 1988, 28 years or so from when civil rights was, I guess, enacted, those feelings still linger because some of those people are old enough or passed it down to their kids or to their grandkids, those feelings. Hey, this person over here is unequal from you. So you need to treat them this way. And they pass it on to their kids, like I said, their kids. So, yeah, it may seem unfathomable that it couldn't happen, but it does. I walk around all the time in a shirt, it's one we used to work out in, or it's an Army one that we did, PT and all, it says Army. Big yellow letters, black, right? And I walk around where I'm from, in Fresno. And how many people say, thank you for your service when I walk around? How many people do you think on a daily, I wear this shirt once a week, say thank you for your service?
I say that to just about everyone I see.
No.
I would think 2 or 3 a day?
Zero.
Wow. How about you? If you were walking around showing that you were representing the military, would you have someone say something?
I think I probably don't get the same thing. I wear my dog tags usually, which I think I took them off somewhere. So, but I usually wear my dog tags out, and I'll get a thank you for your service. But for the same act, and I've got it written down as one of my points, is again, I still get looked at weird like that, where I bring up the point on, like, why do I have to hyphenate myself as I'm this type of American? White people don't have to hyphenate and say I'm Italian American. You know what I mean? So I get that same thing where I have to state that I'm Mexican American. So it comes down to that too, where I tell people it annoys me when they make me say that. I had a roommate, I may have told you this story before, and she was like, hey, we're doing a paper about different cultures and different races, so where are you from? And I was like, I'm from here. And she said, no, where are you from? Like your people, like your parents, where are they from? And I was like, they're from here too. Where are your grandparents from? And white people do this shit all the time and they don't realize they're doing it. And by that point, I knew where she was going with it. She was trying to tell me, like, I'm Mexican. That's what she wanted me to say. But I was like, well, honestly, I was born here. My parents were born here. My grandparents, my great-grandparents were born here. And before that, Texas was Mexico, motherfucker. So I'm as American as you. And I think it's upsetting for me knowing that I fought for my country and I don't get looked at as an American, where again, my dad's a retired naval officer, so he has that, and he doesn't get looked at like he's a retired naval officer. But my mom will make it a point, that crazy woman, will let everybody know, this man served his country, he's a naval officer. And I'm like, no, it's not anymore, Mom. So where they take pride in that, and one day, you know, like I said, I'll take you to El Paso, man. It's a different world down there because it's a border town. So it's just a different world, and you have a big military base installation there. So my mom wears it with a sense of pride because in that town, military means something. Out here, really, we don't really see a lot of military members. But when you live in a town where there's the military, there's a different aspect. But I think that there is a different feeling depending upon what color you might be, which fucking sucks because I don't feel like it was like that in the military. You know, yes, there was racism, but us as soldiers, you know, there's that, you don't leave your fucking brother behind. So we didn't look at it, at least, you know, and of course I mean, like I was a medic or whatever, but we as the soldiers really didn't look at each other like that. And it was funny being part of the military and just going through boot camp. Like I have this thing, I don't know, maybe you can touch on it, Greg, but I say that every young man should have to go through a boot camp. You learn so much about yourself and other people. Like, that was the first time 18-year-olds got together to be a bunch of fucking retards together, and you didn't really notice it. By the end of boot camp, you didn't give a fuck if Greg was black, or fucking Juan was Mexican, or Billy was white. You was just like, man, we made it through this shit.
I feel like football does that to you too, and sports do. When you don't care who's next to you as a guard. If this tackle's kicking ass, you don't care who he is, and the way you work out together and all that stuff. To me, it's too. In the football locker room, I never seen black or white. I didn't care who you were if you were there when I got into it. A question I got for you now, which is playing off him, you being a black soldier or, you know, military, whatever you want to call it, did you feel racism from your peers, your other uniformed officers?
Not really. I had a few higher ups who, you know, there was a tad of it. Like I said, they couldn't come out and say things, but they would treat me differently, even though I was more qualified. So there's to become a sergeant, you go into this class. It's training, it's like 30 days, and you're there the whole time. It's like a little boot camp all over again. And it's called Primary Leadership Development Course, right? And you're in there, and it's like boot camp, but you're learning to be a leader and so forth. And there's 100 guys, and there was a guy who, like, leaders just develop, right? Leaders just are, or they develop, right? You just learn leadership. And so at the end of this, they were going to pick like a top guy, give him an award and so forth. And I wasn't necessarily trying, right? But a lot of guys gravitated toward me. I just know, like, leadership is just making everybody inclusive, right? But there was this white guy who the drill sergeants liked because he was kissing butt. So at the end, they did a vote. The majority of the class voted for me, but this guy got the award.
Even though your peers voted for you.
So I came in second, you know, which I got nothing. But it was just an outright, really? You know what I'm saying? And what was the difference? I was black and he was white. And I was voted by my peers. So even getting voted by my peers, I still didn't make it, you know?
You know, my friend, the one I tell you about, I talked to a lot, he worked at Sandia for years. And he told me the thing that bothered him the most was that he has a master's degree. And he says, anytime I would go for, the way they reevaluate you and you get more money and move to different positions, they'd always look at me like they were shocked I was educated. And that's the thing that he kind of always told me was that, you know, when I go into a room, they'd automatically assume that I didn't have the same education, or they'd be shocked when I showed them my education.
Well, you know how we carry ourselves. Like the story I was telling earlier, when I worked in San Jose, it's a lot of Filipinos. I worked for Kaiser. And, you know, half the Filipinos are there. That's kind of a joke.
Right.
But
they are.
There are. And some straight from the country, or maybe they've been here a couple months or whatever, or years. When a lady actually came up to me and said, "Hey, you're a really nice guy, and you know your shit, and you're just not what I thought." And she really thought that all black people were like Denzel's character on Training Day, because that's all that they saw in the Philippines of black people. There weren't any black people there, but that's all they saw. So I told her, yeah, you can't think that way, because that's the same way I don't think you wash your clothes in a river every day.
Nice.
And she got it. Like, I saw the light bulb go off in her head, you know what I'm saying? So it's sad that just this perception, just because my skin is this color and I'm black, that, you know, I'm a certain way.
Yo, it's your boy Charlie Murphy, my main man, Rick James. That's the one you think, the comedian Rick James. Get up on him.